how good this E53 coupe is. Don't you just hate motor show reports? You can't appreciate the car. Too many people, bad lighting, bad sound. It's exhausting to watch. But we do things a little differently at Remove Before Race. Hey guys, welcome back to RBR. Don't worry, this isn't stealing, I'm merely borrowing the car. You can thank Design Chief Gordon Wagner for Mercedes. We're kind of pals now. So guys, today we're looking at the first AMG model to enter this new generation of Mercedes GLE, and it is the GLE 63. No wait, the GLE 53. Oh, it's that grille, it's so confusing. What is it doing on this car? But no, this is the new GLE 53, and like the other 53s that we tested, like the E53 and the CLS, it uses that same formula of an inline six with hybrid power, but I'll get onto the powertrain later, because I know what you guys are thinking. What is that grille doing on this car? Because this grille that we typically refer to as the AMG Panamericana Grille has only been reserved for the top dog of the AMGs. So 63s like the brand new G63 AMG, or say the entirety of the AMG GT family like the brand new GT63S. And we used to have a different design for what we call the entry-level AMGs, or indeed what AMG called them themselves. Cars like the A35 and the E53, all sporting the twin blade grille of AMGs of past. So we had two different faces for two very different power levels. But now this new GLE 53 breaks all the rules of the past and comes with that AMG Panamericana grille in a move that AMG CEO Tobias Moore says will make it immediately evident that this is a full-fledged member of the AMG family. Now this is interesting, and I feel it's almost like AMG is preparing us for a future where mechanical made engines, hybrid cars, etc. are as important as their one-man, one-engine cars. It's a bit worrying actually. Or perhaps it's the other way around and they're taking these entry-level cars quite seriously. But either way, this grille has caused quite a bit of commotion in the AMG fan base. So let's tackle that straight away. And to do that, I want to look at the car that preceded this, the standard GLE AMG line. And when I looked back at this car, I started to realize that a lot of that entry-level AMG design was already present in the standard car. You've almost got a kind of twin blade grille already there. And you've got the wheels that were always reserved for the 53 cars. So if we gave that car the typical treatment that we would have expected of a GLE 53, it would have hardly looked any different to the standard car. And now suddenly this whole thing is starting to make sense to me. Or maybe not sense, but I can kind of see the logic behind it. I think where AMG are going with this is to give every single AMG that signature look, so that regardless of what power level that car is at, it is immediately recognizable as an AMG car and can never be confused with a Mercedes-Benz. I think that's kind of where they're going with it. Kind of like every single Porsche has the same nose, but they're differentiated then by the lower bumpers, bigger intakes, different exhausts, wider bodies, that kind of idea. So I think this idea of, in fact AMG have said it, the idea of the entry-level AMG is now dead. Now there is only AMG. If there was any doubt of that, I recently saw spy shots of a GLB 35. Now if you're wondering what the GLB is, we've never touched on it, but we will soon. Just a quick overview. It's basically a boxy, small seven-seater, kind of like the old GLK. But you can see that's also got the Pan grille, or the AMG grille as I'm going to forever call it now. You're never going to hear Panamericana from my mouth again. It's got that AMG grille on the front. So I think this is pretty much a definite to eventually roll out across the entire AMG brand. But now we've touched on design, let's talk about the rest of the design of this car. Looking at the front end, it's essentially identical to the standard AMG line, except for those extra aero curtains that you get around the front intakes, which are blocked off. Of course, it's not like a 63 in terms of the intakes. And then you've still got the bonnet bulges, which again were in the standard car. So really the only thing that differentiates this car on the front is that grille. I guess it kind of really needed it. Also notice the silver ring around the star, which is a new feature not seen on any other AMG grille so far. And then you come along the side again, it's all very similar except for the 22-inch full multi-spoke AMG wheels that normally you would associate with the 63s. They are also on this GLE 53. And then I think probably the best bit is the rear. Let's have a look at the rear. Now on the rear you have got the typical AMG rear diffuser with that signature look on the bottom half, and then you've got the quad round pipes as there are in every single 53 and 35 car. And when you see it from the rear, that analogy I gave you of that Porsche thinking is starting to make more sense now, kind of like where you have the Turbo SE Hybrid that we tried recently, Panamera. It had the round pipes, but you get a turbo and it has the quad pipes. And there's other bits of the body that's different, you know, the air intakes, the wheels, the calipers, the width of the car, etc. And I think that's how you're going to spot a 53 from a 63 going into the future from now on. The final effect of the entire design of the car is very much a 63 light, I think. It's very, very aggressive, whatever you think of it and whatever you think of the direction they've gone in. Now let's talk about the power. We've seen this before in our other 53 reviews, as we've said. So this is an inline-six 3-litre turbo engine that produces 435 brake horsepower with 520 Newton meters of torque. That's the base figure. But of course, in between that inline-six engine and the AMG 9-speed gearbox lies the EQ Boost, the hybrid system of this car. It's an electric starter alternator that gives an extra 22 brake horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque. What is the effect of this? Well, we saw it in our other reviews. At the start of the rev range, you get immediate power from the car, kind of like an EV. It's immediately available thanks to the EQ Boost. And by the time it gives you that power, the traditional gas turbo spools up and gives you the rest of the power. Just looking in the engine bay, I must say, I absolutely love the use of carbon fiber inside for rigidity and weight saving. But the 0 to 60 is only 5.3 seconds on this car, which, unless I'm wrong, makes it the slowest of the entry-level AMGs. A whole second behind the E53, half a second behind the A35. So I guess we'll have to see how that feels when we actually drive this car soon. Now, the other thing that that hybrid element does, it charges up the 48-volt system that this car is based on. And that 48-volt system essentially allows more current and thus more clever stuff to be added in the car. And one of the main things for the GLE was suspension, even in the standard car. But this car has AMG's own suspension. It's AMG Active Ride Control Suspension. It's been completely developed at Affalterbach for this car, and it's a lighter system than the usual hydraulic ones. And this one, it's got active roll stabilization. So you've got separate electromechanical actuators on both the front and the rear axles that work independently of each other to minimize roll, which is a big problem for big SUVs. In fact, it's the biggest problem for big SUVs. But it also controls load going into a corner. And in fact, in comfort driving, when you're driving straight, it minimizes the bumps that you get in the road. And this particular system reacts so quickly that it can react 1,000 times a second to driving conditions. Clever stuff. But the thing I was most happy to hear about was the inclusion of the AMG Performance exhaust system, just like you get in the Top Dog 63s. And this gives me hope that AMG are taking these entry-level cars a lot more seriously now. And this is an option that you really couldn't get in most markets for the other 53s. So I think that's going to up the emotional connection that we have to this car to the level of the GT53 four-door. So I'm very happy that that was included in this. Though this all sounds very similar to that GLE 450 that I previewed. It's got the same inline six, it's got that hybrid element as well. But this one, of course, it's been tuned and uprated by AMG. We've got AMG specific rack and pinion steering. We've got AMG specific suspension, gearbox, exhaust system, weight saving. Okay, maybe there's actually quite a lot. But I won't know how much effect that's had on this car until I actually get my hands on it. But I'm really excited because it finally looks like AMG are taking this 53 side of the family a lot more seriously. But guys, just because this has that AMG grille, don't think that a GLE 63S isn't on the way. I saw the mules flying around when I was last in Affalterbach. It's definitely there. It looks wider. It's got the huge AMG intakes as you would expect, a different front end design for sure. It's got the squarer, larger quad pipes like you get in the GT four-door on the rear, and it just looks quite menacing. But whether it will look different enough to this, I'm not sure. As we said, design philosophy is changing a little bit at AMG now. But we can expect the usual V8 bi-turbo, over 600 brake. But what I'm really interested to know is, will this car feature any of that clever hybrid technology that's in every other new GLE? Will we get a bit of a boost in horsepower and torque in a V8 AMG now? I don't know, maybe it won't happen because those cars really won't need it. We'll see in the future. But guys, inside this car, there is also loads of top-level AMG charm. So let's get back to the show, and I want to show you what the inside is like. Now here we are back at the show, and I want to show you the inside of this new GLE 53 4MATIC Plus. Now, if you guys haven't seen my video of the new GLE, the first look that I did of that car, I recommend you have a look, because a lot of the basic new features I covered in there. But I'm going to show you some of them anyway. First, let's talk about what makes this the AMG version of the GLE, specifically with the different trims and such. So the first thing, as I always talk about, that you notice is, of course, you've got an AMG specific steering wheel here. It's flat bottomed, it's got Alcantara on the sides here as you have in your 63s. And this one even has that particular option of the command switches for drive select. So we can change our driving modes here, and we've got the option of putting shortcuts on the left-hand side section where you press the screen and you can change which shortcuts you want, and then you simply click the button. As I've always said, I love this because it's so safe to use. I don't care whether this feature comes in even the lowest AMGs. I want it in every single one because simply it's safer than messing around with stuff here, and while you're driving you can change the modes. Apart from that, then you've got the driver's zone here. And if you've seen my A35 review, you'll notice it's the same up-to-date one, the latest one that AMG have made. Now, the great thing about this, although it's very similar to the Super Sport display that you'll find in the new GTs and the GT 4-door and the C63, this one takes it up a notch, and it's almost got more AMG DNA in it. So that's stuff like the dials for the boost and the revs, etc. They're all shaped just like the AMG logo. And as we've discovered in the past, you can use the touchpad here on the steering wheel and change all of the information that you see in display, on this display rather, on the left and the right to suit whatever you want. And it's especially useful in a 4MATIC Plus car because you get all the information of where the power is going, front, rear. And on the GLE, as we discussed how advanced the suspension is, especially in the AMG version, we thought the normal GLE was advanced. This is even further. You can see all of those suspension changes on a screen here if you want to. So digital screens, I think at the moment, AMG and Mercedes are doing some of the best. Now, of course, the reason that the GLE 53 gets this new screen is because it's attached to MBUX. If you don't know what that is Mercedes' latest system for infotainment. And it started in the A-Class, which if you've seen my video, I said it was like a car from the future, which is why we did the whole Back to the Future theme. It literally has changed the way that we interact with cars. And this car takes it a step forward. It uses a more advanced version of MBUX, which actually has cameras up here. And these cameras are very smart. So if you've got someone sitting here, i.e. the driver, and I go into, say, the seating, the car will pick up the fact that it's the driver, and it will only change the settings for the driver's seat. But if I've got someone sitting here, then it will activate the settings for the passenger instead. It's brilliant. It's really, really good. Now I've just turned on the heated seat thing, which I've got to turn off because it's absolutely boiling here in motor shows, as it always is. Now the A-Class doesn't have that. This is the next version. I expect to see this rolled across future S-Classes, E-Classes, etc., etc. It's the most advanced version of MBUX that you can get in any Mercedes-Benz, and it's only right now in the GLE. Hey Mercedes.
How may I help you?
It's my favourite bit. What do you think of BMW and Audi?
The same as you. Otherwise, you would not be sitting here.
Isn't that brilliant? But beyond that, this is actually useful day to day. What it does is you don't need to mess around with any of the screens. The fact that this is touchscreen, the fact it can see your finger as you're moving across the dials, etc. Forget about all that. Don't use it like that. All you need to do is talk to the car. And the best way I like describing it is, if you want to go to an airport, you would say, hey MB, I'm not going to say Mercedes because it'll activate, take me to Heathrow Airport Terminal 5. And it will do it. That's it. There's nothing else to do. There's no postcodes to enter. There's no list to look through. It's that intuitive. So really, when you use a car that has it, then you jump into something like an AMG GT 4-door, still costing 150 grand and it doesn't have it, kind of feels like you've been kicked in the nuts. So let's hope that it gets rolled over to all the other cars as soon as possible because it's brilliant. Now, the AMG has its own perks to MBUX. So stuff like track pace. We go into track pace, you can record drag races, you can record track races, you get all the telemetry that you want as a driver should you want it and save it into your driver profile. You won't get that in a normal GLE. And then you've also, of course, you can individualize the car's gearbox to whatever you want in terms of, we've got the actual drive of the engine itself, whether it's in reduced, moderate, sport, dynamic, etc. We've got whether it's manual or in automatic. Then we've got AMG Dynamics, of course, changing your steering, the way the car handles, and just whether it's more comfortable or more sporty in the way it drives. And then suspension, of course, you always have that. But with this car, something I'm very, very pleased about that the other 53s don't have, and I've moaned about it so many times in my other review, we have got performance exhaust system. There is an exhaust button here, and it's actually a ticker in this car, which I quite like. Or you can have it in the shortcuts here, or you can set it in your individual mode. Please do that. If I find anyone driving these cars with the exhaust button off, you are in big trouble. And alongside the exhaust button, then you see you've got suspension here, you've got the toggle for all of the off-roading bits, ESP off, manual mode, etc. That's all here, but I'd much rather be using that in the shortcuts. I hope Mercedes-Benz UK bring these into the UK version as well, because we haven't had it so far, for example, in the A35 and the other lesser level AMGs. So please, MB UK, can we have this in our cars as well? Please, thank you very much, that'd be great. Now, as far as the trim itself goes, you can see we've got carbon inside, of course. So this is AMG influence immediately. But there's also more use of Nappa leather, like on the top of the dashboard. We've got Dynamica all over the roof lining, which you don't find in the standard cars. We've also got quilted stitching and Dynamica on the seats here. And the seats are very reminiscent in shape of what you see in the standard seats for the GT four-door, except for the separate headrest as well. Now the rear, I did not get a chance to sit in the rear of the brand new GLE when it came out, but this is a so much more spacious car, and it should be, considering how much the length of the car has increased. The seats are really comfortable, you get a nice lean on them. These rear seats are also fully movable, so you've got full three-way movement on these seats, which is a first for a car of this class. And they're really comfortable. I really feel like they're pushing GLE up a notch, maybe because they want GLS to be higher as well, to the level where you won't feel shortchanged whether you jump into S-Class or into GLE or GLS. And this is not just the 5-seat option, no. Many of you don't know that the GLE has now turned into a 7-seater should you want it to. One of my friends will be very happy to hear this. Now you get 2 proper seats in the rear. It's also great to see the electronic switch on the second row to open up access for the third row in this class of car. Now this is by no means a replacement for GLS. You must think of these rear seats a lot more like what you saw in the 8 Series or the DB11. I'm not going to climb in the back because they're too small for me. Or if you've got a small teenager, you're going to be all right. So guys, that was your first look at this GLE 53. I'm quite excited to drive it, regardless of how I feel about where the styling is going for the entry-level AMGs. I hope you really enjoyed this video. So thank you so much, guys. Please do keep watching. Oh, wait, before you click or swipe away. Guys, I started a giveaway on Instagram that I want to extend to you, my YouTube subscribers, as well. And it's for a very special and rare AMG item that has never been sold and it can never be bought. And that is a 50 years of celebration AMG phone charger. You can charge any phone with it, iPhone, Android, or otherwise. It's only been made available to a select few AMG Private Lounge members. I happen to have one here that I'm willing to give away to you guys. All you need to do is hit the subscribe icon on that RBR logo button there, and then press the bell icon. And if you've already subscribed, just hit the bell icon. That's it. And then you'll get a chance to win this. Now you're wondering what's behind me, and this is the video that is coming up next. The awesome M5 competition. See you guys then.